Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1423. 1423. Hello, I'm Mike Matthews, broadcasting from Café Anyway. Located somewhere in Podcastro Valley, Mont. Today, we hear from people that will pop by. The door will open, they will walk in, and all will be just splendid. Madame Rootabega, Valentino, Bison Bentley stopping by, plus
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Here at the last place on earth, we call it the bottom of the charts. This is the news that's at the bottom.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
But the news at the top can be a little annoying, especially with all the things they've been deploying, like people going to the areas where there was totality. And that was just a whole bunch of words for me to say, really.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
I saw a little bit of the eclipse. It looked like a big chunk had taken out
Mike's
of the sun.
Daily
And I looked directly at it.
Podcast.
Well, actually, I had a little filter, and that was called clouds. Lots and lots of clouds. So I looked at it a little bit, took a couple pictures, none worth putting in the podcast picture. But what was really fun was the building that I work in. A lot of people from the different companies were coming out, mostly women. Actually, all women. And it was nice talking to them. You know, you don't really get to know your neighbors in this world called the Bay Area. Look who just walked in. Hello, Michael Masters, Madame Rootabega. And I didn't know I was in the Bay Area. Woo. Where'd you think you were? I thought I was in Mazatlan. Mazatlan. That's a cool place to be, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I've never been there. Look who else walked in.
Hello, Mike. This is Valentino, the parking attendant.
And this is Bison Bentley. Do you know that?
Mike, we're over here.
Is you blind?
I think I am. I looked directly at the sun, and I shouldn't have. Hey, I posted a podcast. Ow, my eyes. I posted a podcast picture yesterday of Doctor Who's Peter Capaldi from one of the episodes where his eyes were missing because he turned into this weird ghost zombie creature. And I said, I looked directly at the eclipse. And I think I got maybe 3 likes, and that's the most likes I've ever gotten. Thank you.
That's depressing, Mike.
Yeah, depressing. Do you know that?
And here's today's podcast picture.
It's of something not depressing. It's boats. Boats in Monterey. I might go visit Monterey, I think in about a month, and take my wonderful dog, Basil the Boxer, there. When I go to Florida, he will be with my roommate. My roommate will be taking care of him, so don't worry about him. The dog, not the roommate. You know, this show is dog friendly, and I guess that's all I wanted to say. I guess I have a lot of opinions about how people treat dogs, and I get very upset when there's a family or a couple that wants to start a family and they have a baby and then they get rid of the dog. That is why I love Ashley. Ashley is this girl I keep seeing when I walk the trails, and she has this wonderful dog named Xena, named after the warrior princess of the TV show of the same name. A German Shepherd, kind of a smaller German Shepherd, and Xena loves to play with Basil. And I get so mad at people that when they get rid of their dog, when the wife becomes pregnant or something, like, we can't have a dog here. And Ashley not only kept Xena, but walks the trails now. She has had this baby for 3 months, no, not even a month, 2 months maybe. And I saw her, I think I talked about on a recent podcast how she has one of those baby holders that's all cloth and holds the baby close to your chest. She was wearing one of those as she walked her dog and walked the trails. And the trails aren't that crazy. They're just sort of a little bit of a hill that go around the houses, go around this lake, what used to be a lake at Coal Canyon. And actually, I saw her pushing a stroller on Saturday, and she's just got the most positive attitude, and she looks great. Like, Why? And Xena's a happy dog because there's this family growing around the dog, and the dog behaves well. But Mike, some dogs have really bad behavioral problems. All right. I just think, look, there's dog obedience classes. But Mike, we're too busy. Ugh. All right. Anyway, it's always good to hear other opinions, even though it was just me thinking of what the other opinion might be. But whatever. Café Anyway.
Anyway.
The point is that I saw the eclipse. It was awesome. And the people were cool. They're outside. Okay, then I had to go and do a recording. And it's interesting, the radio station I work at, we have lots of people that record and do shows that have never been on the radio or don't quite understand the logistics of radio. I think I talked about these people that I record that thought that doing the entire show over the phone was okay. Even though, would you want to hear, "Hi, this is Mike. Welcome to Mike's Daily Podcast. I'm talking to you over a phone." There's a service, I don't know how they stay in business. I think they're called blog radio or blog talk radio, where you call in and do your show and then they post it online. And the whole thing sounds like this. And I think that just sounds terrible. Well, for some reason, these people that host the show, I'm not going to name names, they thought that was okay. And then yesterday, they tell me, because they do these shows, I give them time. The show is only a specific amount of time that they're allotted, and they can't go over the time. And I give them the time cues, and they still go over. So what I have to do afterwards is, since it's a pre-recorded show, is I have to go in and chop the show down to make sure it fits in the time. And they actually asked me yesterday, "Mike, how come when the show is long and you cut it down, how come there's parts of the show that we said that aren't there?" I was like, what? Is that question even... should that have even been asked? I don't quite understand. It's called editing, basically. And yeah. There is a technique where you can speed up the talk, but it sounds completely unnatural. I don't like it. And The Economist Radio does it for their podcast, and it sounds terrible. And they do a thing where they edit out all of the breaths. So it's like one continuous sentence and you don't hear any breaths, and it just keeps going like that. And that's the entire podcast. And this happens for like a whole 20-minute long podcast. Not a good idea. The brain needs breaks absorbing information, just as the host needs breaks in their conversation talking to you. But that's about it. I just wanted to cover all those things. Mike'sDailyPodcast.com is where you can go. I like to lift the curtain from time to time, I guess, to show you the inner workings of this field called radio and podcasting, which will never go away because we're always doing things. And we, like, you are listening to the show as you are doing something rather interesting, I'm sure. And that's why I always found this way more interesting than video. Video, they show you what they want you to see, and I'm not interested. It really isn't. I'd rather listen and do something that helps me. You know, I'm a multitasker is what I'm saying. But Mike'sDailyPodcast.com if you'd like to check out that. There is video. Well, there's not really video on it. There's pictures of me. There's the podcast pictures. And that's about it. I don't get too into that. But there, if you want to help out the show, there's the Amazon link. If you want to click on that and buy whatever it is you're going to buy. And the PayPal will help us out that way too. Okay, now the segment called...
Oh my God!
The bottom of the charts.
Here we are down at the bottom of the charts. And the bottom of the news charts, that is. And the news, the big news, but I guess it's the bottom here. I don't know, we're having a Poseidon Adventure sort of moment. But President Trump put forward yesterday a long-awaited strategy for resolving the nearly 16-year-old conflict in Afghanistan. But he failed to specify either the number of troops that would be committed or the conditions by which he would judge the success of their mission there. According to the New York Times, In a nationally televised primetime speech to troops at Fort Myer, Virginia, Trump said there would be no blank check for the American presence in Afghanistan, but in announcing his plan, he embraced deepening American involvement in a military mission that has bedeviled his predecessors and that he once called futile. My original instinct was to pull out, and historically I like following my instincts, he said. But all my life I've heard that decisions are much different when you sit behind the desk in the Oval Office. In other words, when you're president of the U.S. So we get it. Oval Office, president. You didn't have to clarify that, but... So I studied Afghanistan in great detail and from every conceivable angle. He campaigned for president, promising to extricate the U.S. from foreign conflicts, and many of the steps that he announced yesterday have been proposed by previous administrations. He is plagiarizing. He portrayed the strategy as a stark break with the Obama administration, arguing while his predecessor set artificial timetables.
I inherited a mess. It's a mess.
For American involvement in Afghanistan, his strategy would be a comprehensive, conditions-based regional approach that would aim for a political solution there. Part of the plan is to deploy more American troops to Afghanistan to continue to train Afghan forces there with the goal of persuading the Taliban, which have recently gained substantial ground in the war, that they could not win on the battlefield. He said the consequences of a rapid exit are both predictable and unacceptable. A hasty withdrawal would create a vacuum that terrorists, including ISIS and Al-Qaeda, would hastily fill. And I've heard that from other experts from both sides, from both parties, saying that. Well, on to the U.S. government is planning on adapting a new approach to discourage hackers and other malicious actors from attacking government and military agencies. They will capture the malware and send it back at the attacker. The hack-back strategy was presented by Lieutenant General Vincent Stewart of the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA, or DIA, which is a female god, an organization specializing in defense and military intelligence, during the U.S. Department of Defense Intelligence Information Systems conference in Missouri. I mentioned it. No, I didn't mention that organization yesterday. But the, what's it called? The, I always want to say anagram, but it's the, an acronym for that is DO-DICE. DO-DICE. It's a bizarre acronym. Once we've isolated malware, I want to re-engineer it and prep to use it against the same adversary who sought to use it against us, he said at the conference. We must disrupt to exist. The DO-DICE conference was attended by members of the FBI, CIA, National Security Agency, NSA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, also known as NAMBLA. That was a joke I stole from The Daily Show. They used to do that all the time. Anytime they were doing an acronym, they would go with that. It's a bad joke. Companies including Microsoft, Xerox, the NFL, FireEye, and Data Robot also attended the event. It was clear from the event that the DIA was interested in taking a more aggressive approach to fighting back against attackers. In addition to Stewart's suggestion that the organization could reconfigure malware and return it to its sender, the chief information officer for the agency also advocated for going on the offensive in response to attacks. In the past, we've looked inward, focusing on improving our internal processes, business practices, integration. Today, we are looking outward, directly at the threat. The adversary is moving at a faster pace than ever before, and we must continue to stay one step ahead. And finally, one little bit of tech news here. It's official Oreo. And didn't Trump say no more Oreos? There's a clip of that somewhere that I would play for you, but what's the point? What's the point? That was my Marvin the what was that robot's name of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Marvin the Android, right? Oreo is the newest version of Android, Google's mobile operating system. The updated software, which has been available for the last few months in developer beta, will arrive on devices by the end of the year. If you have an Android, you will get an Oreo. Yum. It was a long guessing game about what the O in Android stands for. Oh yeah, because they're going through the whole name, Android. For the uninitiated, Google names each new version of Android alphabetically and after a candy or sweet. Oh! For example, the most recent version was dubbed Nougat. Before that was Marshmallow. Oh, it's alphabetical. And before that, Lollipop. Oreo will be Android 8.0, following Nougat. Theories making the rounds predicted either O stood for Oreo or that Google was trolling everyone by timing the announcement during Monday's solar eclipse. Google unveiled a statue of the newest dessert-themed update at 14th Street Park in Manhattan yesterday, just as the eclipse high point started trailing off. The unveiling was across the street from Chelsea Market, where the original Nabisco factory was located. That's where the first Oreo was invented. This is the first time that Google has revealed the next Android statue somewhere other than in Mountain View, California, not too far away from here in Podcastro Valley, California, where giant lollipops, ice cream sandwiches, and jelly beans grace the grounds. Named after former versions of Android. Google decided to name this update after the Oreo cookie after several late nights at its headquarters where engineers just kept grabbing the snacks. And you know, they've got all those snacks there available for them constantly. You can have 3 different types of food. I think the green labeled food is the good stuff for you. Grapes, bananas, apples, strawberries. Then I think it goes, I forget what the one in the middle is, but red are ones you shouldn't eat a lot of, like Oreos would probably be labeled a red one. As we go outside of Café Anyway, we're bringing Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley. Next show, it's going to be Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, and John Deere the Engineer. Enjoy your Oreo or whatever you were eating today. They said, by the way, you could have watched the eclipse using an Oreo as the shadow. That made no sense to me. Somebody said that on one of the talk shows I was listening to. And I did bring my colander to work, but I couldn't use it because there was no shadows on the ground because of the clouds were obstructing the sun. So that happened. Enjoy your day. I hope your eyes are feeling much better after all the viewing you did yesterday.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Yes, I can.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!